Hey, how's it, man? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, how you doing, man? Thanks a lot.
I'm doing great. Thank you for calling me.
I've been following Quasar since the first album. It's an honor having you here.
Oh, this is very good, man. I didn't know that. Cheers. Cheers for that.
I remember I contacted you in the old podcast I had, so, but it didn't work back in the day, 7 years ago. Yeah, I don't remember exactly why it didn't happen, but I remember calling you back in the day.
Oh, 7 years ago. Yeah, we weren't playing. Probably that was the problem. Probably we were very inactive. But now we are very active, so good.
Hell yeah. You're talking from Asunción?
Yeah, Asunción, yes.
Cool. Which countries from South America, guys, have ever played?
We played Brazil, of course,
Yeah.
especially the south, Paraná, Florianopolis, Sao Paulo, the southern region, and then the north. We played in Teresina. Then we played in Bolivia, Cochabamba, in Santa Cruz de la Sierra, and then we played, of course, Paraguay. Those are the countries, basically Paraguay, Brazil, and Bolivia.
Never did Argentina and Uruguay?
No, no, never. Argentina is we really have to play in Argentina. A lot of fans are asking for us to go, but it never happened. We never had the chance to go to Argentina.
Cool. And all right, think we can start this interview in a different way. You guys have recently done your first tour abroad, going through England and Ireland. I know it's not easy for a South American band to achieve this, so could you talk a bit about how you made it happen and how were the concerts as well?
Well, yeah, it is actually the first time ever a Paraguayan band played in Europe. And then we played in Belgium, Spain, England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. So there was a lot of countries, a lot of shows, and we had a chance to play with bands such as Violence, Exhorter, and meet a little bit of the local scene in Spain. Was very, very, very good for us to get the chance to meet the underground scene as well. It was very good, and the shows were amazing. Actually, the reviews are very good. I just read a review from Sheffield, a city in England, and they were very, very happy to see us. They said it was refreshing to hear a band from a country they never heard of. So yeah, that's very good. It's very, interesting to see the reactions. We were playing, it's metal done the way we South Americans do. So we have, a little rhythm. We have a little bit of a swing. So the people from the north tend to like it. So there was always very good. The people was very attracted to the band. All the shows were packed. All the shows were packed. That's something very important to say, and it was very good for us. It was very hard to get the shows. For as you mentioned, for South American bands, it's very hard to get the attention from the north. But with the last album, with Hybrid Power, we have very good video clips. The song Machete Shepope that talks about the War of Paraguay, as you people know it in Brazil and the rest of the continent. But is the war is named Triple Alliance War, and they don't know about that. So it's very good to give them a little bit of our history as well. And that song worked very well. The video clip is very good. Then songs like Silence, Obscure and Violent. So they started to pay attention to us. And that helped a lot. And of course, when we played with bigger bands like Megadeth, Slipknot, all of that helped. So they reached out and then the tour happened.
And you guys had the chance to drop by in Birmingham and take the picture in the Black Sabbath bench. Saw that on Facebook.
Yeah, that was amazing. And in that city, we had a chance to meet Becky Baldwin, the female bass player that plays with King Diamond, Merciful Fate.
I
She
saw the picture. Yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing. So humble, down to earth. She is. I interviewed her because I had like a program on Twitch. So we knew each other from the internet. So we had this long conversation. She was talking to me. She was talking to me a lot of the shows in Chile, Brazil with Merciful Fate, and we were talking about the differences between Europe and South America, the crowd, and then it was a very good chat. So Birmingham was a very, very nice place to play. Of course, the Black Sabbath bench and the whole aura of the city. You can feel it. This is where metal comes from. So it was a very, very good moment for us to be there at the place where everything was given birth.
Nice energy.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna follow a timeline now. I want to get back to the very beginning. I want to know how you got into music, if you had any family influences, the instrument you learned how to play first, and how you got into heavy music.
Well, my family, my dad, of course, he liked Zeppelin, AC/DC, big AC/DC fan. And my father gave me a Sepultura album when I was 12 years old. He gave me Chaos AD, and that was brutal for me. That was so heavy at the moment. I barely could listen to it because I was listening to Guns N' Roses and Nirvana and bands like more mainstream stuff. But then I got Iron Maiden, Fear of the Dark, and then I listened properly to Chaos AD, and then my life changed completely, and I became a metalhead. But in my family, I like my father is a real metalhead. He likes rock and roll and metal, classic rock. And then my cousins, they lived in a different city, but every time we got together, they were all listening to Pantera, Slipknot. So there was this rock and roll vein in the family. And also, my cousin, she got married to a guitar player from a band in Paraguay named Steel Rose. That band is very good. They released an album called Angelus back in the 2000s, and it was very, very good. So metal was part of my family all along, and then rock and roll also. I have like my older brother. He's not a metalhead, but he likes rock and roll. So he was always listening to bands such as Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Oasis. Oasis is not it's rock and roll, but distortion and rock and roll guitars were always in my family. So it was an easy path to follow.
Nice. At which moment you met the guys from Quasar and decided to start a band?
Well, a long time ago, actually, the drummer is my brother. So, and then the bass player, he used to go to the same school. Yeah, to the same. We were in the same school, so we were always talking. And he had a band in the past. So we were teenagers. We didn't even know what we were doing. We were just playing music. And then, but one day we said, all right, maybe we should make an album. Maybe we should start taking it more seriously because we were already playing in festivals in Brazil. They were hiring us in cities like Curitiba. Curitiba is a very tough city. It's a capital.
That's where I am right now.
Yeah, they're difficult. And we were playing in Curitiba, and people were saying, "Hey, we like you. You're very good." So we were like, "Hey, man, these people like us." We were reluctant, and we were very surprised. So we said to each other, well, maybe we should record an album. Maybe we should take this more seriously because we just had like a couple of demos at the moment. And from that moment on, that was still the 2000s, with like 07, 08 or something like that. We were young. I wasn't even 20 years old. From that moment on, I think the band changed a little bit the direction. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm talking about 20 years ago almost. So, but we were very young. We started playing very young, 15 years old. We are all in our 30s, so we're still young. But we were very, very young at the moment. So this is why we have such a long career per se, because we started being children. Basically, we're just very, very young adolescents. So we have a lot of time to develop and play. We played with many bands from the Brazilian scene. So yeah, we got to see a lot of stuff in the metal scene, and so as you can tell, I've known them for 20 years plus to answer your question. And we just decided to play. It was natural. We just wanted to make music. It wasn't even something serious at the moment. But then we realized people were starting to dig our music. So yeah, maybe we should do something more serious. And then The Wrath of God, the first album, came to see the light. And then a lot of stuff changed for us.
Awesome. Something that caught my attention in the first album is the technique of the songs. Those are not easy songs. They're very hard, especially the drums, and it's just super tight. That was what caught my attention back in the day. It's very tough to play that.
Yeah, it was. I don't know what happened because we liked metal. We were and they say to us that you are a thrash metal band, but we weren't listening to thrash metal back then. We liked Slayer, of course, but we liked bands such as Carcass, such as Death, such as Morbid Angel, such as I don't know. We like System of a Down. We liked, of course, Creator, and Creator is a different approach to thrash metal, such as is Sodom. So there were so many influences back then, and they still are. They're present. But this is why the first album is so complex, because I think we were trying to put everything in there. So this is why you have blast beats, and then you have like grooves, then you have like complex riffs. But at the next song, you have like more simple riffs, but a mid-tempo song. So it was a conversion of all the influences, and this is why the album is such a it's nurturing at the end of the day, because you can hear a lot of influences, and maybe that created a complex album, but we don't know. We were just playing basically.
Another point here, since the first album you guys brought Guarani, which is an indigenous language that's very important in Paraguay. I don't remember any other country in the whole world that has an indigenous language that is so popular and relevant, which is a clear result of colonization. Could you talk a bit about this fact?
Yeah. Paraguay is weird in that matter because Brazil, you have for giving an example, Brazil has a lot of words in Guarani, but Brazilians don't know about it. The place where Brazilians go and they do the carnival is called Sapucaí, and it's mispronounced because Sapucai is the word. You don't say Sapucaí, you say Sapucai. Sapucai means the scream. Then for example, we played in a city. We played with Crisium, death metal legend Crisium, in Crypta, this amazing female fronted band from Brazil. We played with them in a city named Jaraguá do Sul. And Jaraguá means the city of the owner. The Jara means like the owner or the boss of the region, right? And Brazilians don't know about that. So this is something that happened in Paraguay. Paraguay, of course, was conquered, but the culture endured. Here in Paraguay, you see something weird. There's people like blonde with blue eyes speaking Guarani. Then you see immigrants from Japan speaking Guarani. Then you see people like me. I'm white with dark hair, and I'm a mix. I have indigenous heritage, but I also have European heritage. But I speak fluent Guarani, such as I speak Spanish, and this happens in Paraguay. And I can say this. I can say this properly because I've been to Bolivia, I've been to Peru, and I know that they still speak Quechua, but normally people, the mixed people mix European and the locals, they don't speak Quechua already. But in Paraguay, that's different. In Paraguay, it's kind of fashionable. You can talk to people, and it's kind of cool if you know the words. Brands are adopting words from the Guarani language, and then I think that's so important, right? Because such as English is the mix of several languages. Why is our language worse or less valuable? So it's so cool that in Paraguay people are starting to pay attention to that, and people is actually trying to speak Guarani, and it's being taught in schools and in colleges. So yeah, it's very important to keep it alive, and it's not only for Paraguay; it's also for Argentina, also for Uruguay, and also for part of Argentina, the North Argentina and the south of Bolivia. So important because Paraguay is basically the memory of the whole region. Because when you got football teams playing together, they say the Guaranis. They call us the Paraguayans the Guaranis, but actually the Guaranis, they were everywhere. They were in Brazil. They were in the south of Bolivia. They were in the north of Argentina. They were even Uruguay. Uruguay is a word in Guarani. So imagine the influence they got. So they were everywhere. They were basically all over South America.
The borders were made by Europeans back in the day.
Exactly. Yeah. The borders weren't made by Europeans. So you had a lot of the heritage that's alive here in Paraguay is important not only for Paraguay, but also for Brazil, also for Argentina, also for Bolivia, because you can trace your culture back to a place where it is still alive. So it's very important. And I encourage people from South America to take a look. to our languages, to our ancestors, because it's so cool and it's so relevant. So it's very, very important for us to take a look at us and realize how cool the South American culture is.
2023, Kuazar finally released the second album, Hybrid Powers, recorded and produced in Paraguay, Brazil, and the United States. How was the writing and producing process of the album, and why it took so long to come?
Well, first of all, it was very hard to replace Ratti because at the moment Ratti wasn't in the band. So we had to find a very, very good drummer. And it was at the moment was Marcelo Moreira from Brazil, ex-drummer from Alma. He also helped in the production of the album. He was a producer alongside Adrián Ortiz, which is another producer from Paraguay. And it took time because we wanted to do something good. We really took our time. We weren't in a rush. We knew that, even though we had our name in the underground, we knew that we needed something good to come back. So if you just released an album that was gonna go unnoticed, it's gonna, many bands happen. They have like this sort of like a hype, and then the next album is not that good, so they have ended there. So we didn't want that to happen to us. So we decided to wait and do it properly. The recording was very good. We recorded at Anaheim. The name of the studio is Field Music Studios, from a Brazilian guy named Adasi. And then it was recorded there. The drums were recorded by Marcelo Moreira, and then live they're played by Ratti because he came back to the band. And the result is very good. Actually working with two producers and having my input as well. And the album was mixed by Brendan Duffy, that is just recently worked with Bruce Dickinson, for example. So it's very good. The team we created was very good. It was at the moment was something very good. And then we couldn't proceed with Marcelo Moreira because he was living in the States and the agendas were terrible. So it was just impossible. So the best way to proceed and move forward was basically bringing back Ratti to the drums. And the audience loved it. The fans said, well, we wanted this. So they wanted the original lineup or the classic lineup, and it worked for us. And the whole process was very good. I know it was painful and slow. Even the fans were like on our social media were demanding stuff. We want new music, but that's good, right? Because they're expecting something for you. But yeah, we took our time because we wanted to do something good, and I think the result is quite good.
The most they're expecting, the better you got to do. Into this new album, I want to talk about the main single, which you have already mentioned here in the beginning of the interview. The main single of this album made a lot of noise in Paraguayan media when it was released, and it talks about the genocide of Acosta Nu, committed by Brazilian army in 1869, where dozens of kids, women, and elderly were brutally murdered. Could you explain a bit about this sad memory of South American history?
Yeah. The Paraguayan War is a very complex event in history, but we're not talking about politics here. We're talking about the moment the genocide started, right? Acosta Nu was a dark moment, but it's a moment that is not, it wasn't the only attack to the civilians that happened at the end of the war. When Duque de Caxias was in charge of the Brazilian troops, there was a fair war. The soldiers killing soldiers. That's war, right? Unfortunately, that's horrible enough, right? But then the emperor wanted to end the war, right? So they started killing civilians, children, women, and they sent the French person named Count Du, Conde Deu, Gaston de Orleans. And that dude started killing everybody, right? He burned a hospital with like nurses, sick people, elder people, everybody. He didn't care. And then he moved to the next city and he started killing children, and there's of course people saying no, that they were sent battlefront, but that's discrepancy there because the genocide was already it was already taking place, right? The city before Acostañu was already a brutal massacre. It was children, women. This is why the church that appears in our video clip is in Piribebui, the city before Acostañu, because the massacre wasn't only in Acostañu. Unfortunately, the genocide started one city before, days before, where everybody was brutally murdered, not only soldiers, right? It was, they wiped a city out. That's a genocide, right? And then they moved to Acostañu, and they killed children, women, ancient people, the elder, the sick. In that moment, the war started to take a different, very, very different place, and it became like a massacre, a genocide against everybody. It wasn't just trying to kill the troops and everybody. No, it was very, very complex and complicated. So this is why we're trying to talk about this, because the whole world is like going to the direction of another war, right? Russians, Ukrainians, Israel, Palestine, and we should talk about this because our memory should be alive. We don't want Brazilians killing Paraguayans, Paraguayans killing Argentinians, Bolivians killing us. If you don't know history, you tend to repeat it, right? So that's the whole spirit of the song. And it's also very good and very important for us, South America, to talk about what happened here. Because, Europeans, they are talking about Thor, Odin, World War II, World War One. We're talking about Da Vinci. We know everything about them. We know everything about them. They don't know shit about us. So it's very important for me, from Quasar, to sing about this, so they get to know a little bit about us. So they know that it was a genocide here. We're not pointing fingers here, but that what happened, right? This happened. So it's like Metallica singing about World War One, or Iron Maiden singing about Aces High. It is very important because it is a way to tell your story, to tell your side of the story, to let the people know what happened here. So I think for me, it's very important that people realize that we have our own history as well. It's dark, sad, but it is history. So it's very important for us, South Americans, to tell the people in the North and the rest of the world that we exist as well.
Exactly. You guys are probably the first band to do that in Paraguay, at least worldwide. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a sad fact: the Brazilian artists back in the day, they represented the kids in the paints as adult soldiers,
Yeah,
and as an attempt to erase this memory from history.
exactly. Normally, the people that wins the war, they tend to.
They tell a story.
Exactly. He gets to tell the story. So it was distorted, but this is very important to say that it's not only that, because there is people saying that no, the kids were sent to battlefront. Actually, no, they were just living there. You see, because it happened days before. Days before they attacked a city named Piribebui, the city didn't want to surrender, because there is another fact that is very important. That Brazil was the only country involved that had slaves. So in Paraguay, here, because I'm Paraguayan, I can tell this, the Vox Populi, the voice of the people, they didn't want to become slaves because the emperor was taking Paraguayan as slaves. This is why they weren't surrendering. It is something very important to notice that Brazil was the only country involved in that war that had slaves still. So they were sending Afro Americans to the battlefront with the promise of freedom. So imagine they were looking for their freedom, and they say you have to kill this child. Imagine the situation of that poor Afro American. That he was already a slave, right? And then he was sent battlefront to kill children and people and being a war. So for a country that hated him. So the whole stuff is all messed up, right? Everything is wrong about that war. This is why I'm always telling people this is not about Paraguay. It's not about Brazil. This is about history, and we should stay together as we are now. We should just keep rivalry to football, and that's it. And then the rest of us, we're friends. We're family. We're basically the same blood. So we have to be very, very careful with things that are happening in the planet now. In South America, should never go to war again.
There's another fact I read the Children's Day in Paraguay is a memorial day
Yeah,
to this
yeah.
genocide.
The 16th of August, yes.
Something that made me curious, how you guys managed to record a video on a church?
Well, that was very funny. There is actually a priest. He's from Barcelona and he's living in Paraguay, and he is a die-hard metalhead. So he's a priest from Barcelona. Yeah, he is very ironic because he likes King Diamond. So he's a fan of King Diamond, right? And we all know the lyrics, right? So so he says, right, he likes Judas Priest, King Diamond, he likes Dimmu Borgir. He's very interested in metal, heavy, you name it. He likes metal. And I went to his office, right, with the lyrics because it wasn't recorded. The album wasn't finished yet. And I said, I want to do this in this place because of this, because I knew about the Battle of Piri which took place before Acosta knew. But that church was the same during the war. So that is an old ass church, right? So and he said, "This is very good. Let's just talk to the guy that managed the chapel, and he will understand." So he got me a meeting. So I traveled almost 200 kilometers to the church, and I had this meeting with this person, right? So I had the song already. He listened to the song. I took the lyrics with me, and I said, "We want to do this. We want to bring some children. We want to bring a mother to show, like like Mary, she was crying for his son Jesus. So we want to do something parallel to that with the Paraguayan mother crying because his children are dying, her children are dying." So he liked the idea. So that was very good because there's some historical fact that happened there in that church. Count Du was there in that church, and he was decapitating women, children, everybody, even babies, because there is a famous story that there was a baby that was with their mother, and he decapitated even the baby. So it's a war, right? This is why war is horrible. This is why I'm not talking about Brazil, Paraguay. It's fuck war. Stop that, right? Because that's real. I'm not. I was not trying to record something satanic, right? I was trying to tell a story, and then no, they say yes, and so everybody was happy until the newspapers are starting to say that we were satanic and we used the church as a profanation. So the guy from the church called me and you say, "You lied to me." That's no, I didn't lie to you. Take a look at this. There are some amazing reviews as well, but no negative news are way more popular, right? But at the end of the day, those headlines helped Quasar to become more popular in Paraguay. A lot of people discovered Quasar through those negative comments, through those lies, to be honest. And it worked. It worked like a charm. The video is already 105K plus reproductions, and people love it. The comments are so positive. Even a famous YouTuber from Spain that always makes reviews of historical facts, he didn't know about the war, and he said nobody knows about this war here in Spain. So it's very important for us to be telling our story. It's not only the story of Paraguay, it's the story of South America, something bad that happened here. And as I say, I always say this is not against anything. It's not against Brazil. It's not against Argentina. It's not in favor of Paraguay. This is against war between people that actually like each other.
This is an off question. My brother is graduated in history, and he asked me to do this question to you. And he want to know about how Paraguay was restructured after the war that killed most of the adult male population of the country, something that we do not study here in Brazil.
Yeah, easy to answer because a lot of people from northern Argentina came to repopulate Paraguay, and polygamy was legal, so they started to let women to have like several husbands and men to have several wives because they needed to repopulate the country. And I don't know if you know this, but Brazil was controlling the capital for 5 years after the war. So the
Yes.
Brazilian flag was waving all over the capital here, and they were still sacking the city. So it was very difficult for the first years. But after that, I know that Paraguay kind of stood up. And but yeah, of course, this is why Paraguay was very poor at the beginning of the 20th century because we're just recovering from that war. The 1900s were just 20 years away. So it was a dark moment for economy. This is why still Paraguay is an undeveloped country in comparison to Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil. Because, after that, we had the war with Bolivia. Also, again, there is debt. Paraguay had to pay the debt of the war. So, yeah, it was a real disaster for Paraguay. But, there's a long time ago, and Paraguay now has its own, corruption issues like every South American country.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took a while for Paraguay to recover, and then they had like the war with Bolivia. So yeah, it was a complicated beginning of the century for Paraguay.
All right, Josema, that was a huge honor and pleasure having you here. Would you like to send the last message to the Mr. Doom community that will be listening to this interview?
Well, thank you very much for having us here, and please go, and if you've never heard of us, go and Google us, go to YouTube, take a look at the videos. I think we really put our hearts to it, so you have a good material over there. And then if some promoter is asking for some bands, new bands, some coming up bands, always mention us, please. We won't let you down. So please join us. Come on, join forces with Quasar. You won't be disappointed.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. Cheers. Thank you for having me.